You know what I just did? I just put together a GoFundMe for Hal Steinbrenner.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
To Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. You can follow me. I'm your pal Sully at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But if you want to get a hold of me, the best thing to do is just leave a comment right here on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there is no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. All right, well, I talked a little bit the other day about the whole who's really to blame in terms of some of the spending and who's not spending. And I made the argument that the culprit is not the Dodgers for trying to put a good product on the field and working within the rules, but it's teams like the A's who have, the A's had like $200 some odd million of revenue and had to be basically sued into spending money. And we got a bunch of interesting topics about that and conversation about that. But the topic is not going away. Now, the Mets spent a ton of money. The Dodgers spending a ton of money. And other teams are putting together some good teams along the way and making some free agent signings. But the person who said something today that really has to, I don't know, how do I say this? Be aware of who he is and understand that, you know what, don't necessarily say everything out loud. That person is Hal Steinbrenner. And Hal Steinbrenner today is quoted, I'm looking at an article from the New York Post written by Mark W. Sanchez. It was a lot, several people have reported this. And basically someone, I asked them a question. It was a Meredith Markovitz asked him a question about the fact that the Dodgers are spending so much money and outbidding teams like the Yankees for some of the players, including, they obviously they brought in, Sasaki, and they brought in, Blake Snell and everything. And Hal Steinbrenner said this, and this is a classic slap the forehead moment. It is difficult for most of us owners to be able to do the kind of things that they're doing, referring to the Dodgers. We'll see if it pays off. They still have to have a season relatively injury-free for it to work out for them. It's a long season. As you know, once you get to the postseason, anything can happen. We've seen that time and time again. Okay. Some of that I have no issue with. Yes, the Dodgers did not have an injury-free season last year. As you will remember, their pitching staff was in absolute shambles by the time they got to the World Series. It is a long season, and in the postseason, we have seen, and I made this point the other day, a great deal of parity. And I think the great equalizer in baseball is the postseason. The expanded postseason has allowed teams that are not high up in the payroll spending and everything like that be able to take down a big old team. Just keep in mind, since 2001, the Yankees and Dodgers have combined for 3 World Series titles. It's not always the big spender who wins. So I get what he's saying to a degree there. We'll see that they still have to have an relatively injury-free season to have it work out for them. Hal, I think it worked out pretty well for them last year. It helped that they were playing against a team that forgot how to play defense and were managed by Aaron Boone. But, I don't remember what team that was. Here's the part of this that is, again, we have slips of the tongue. We don't always phrase things correctly, but holy cow, you can't say this. It's difficult for most of us owners to be able to do the kind of things they're doing. Did you catch that? The Yankees are trying to lump themselves in with some of the lower payroll teams in one sentence. It's difficult for us owners, as if the Yankees have suddenly become the Pirates, as if the Yankees have suddenly become the Tampa Bay Rays. No, Yankees, you are not one of us owners looking up and saying, oh, I can't keep up with the Dodgers. The Yankees have a better revenue stream than the Dodgers. The Yankees can keep up. And you know what? Hal Steinbrenner and the Yankees have a high payroll. They have spent money on players. It's not like they're a low rent organization. Okay. They do have one of the highest payrolls in baseball. They have spent big money on players like Aaron Boone and Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon. They have spent money for the players currently on the field. And they traded for Giancarlo Stanton, who had a big, huge Mongo contract when he was with the Miami Marlins. So it's not like they're not a spending team, but the Yankees cannot play that card. They can't. They really can't. They can't play, we're just a poor team trying to make ends meet. You're the New York freaking Yankees. You are the team that created spending all the money in the world. You are the team that created the concept of literally the franchise that created the concept of signing free agents. The first major free agent wasn't, which was on a contract technicality. It wasn't free agency like we know now, but it was Catfish Hunter when his contract was voided because of a technicality after the 1974 World Series, and he became a free agent. It was the Yankees who put up the bid and brought him and made him baseball's first millionaire, and made people realize, made players realize, oh, wow, maybe free agency can work. And once it did, and some teams were completely, absolutely against going to free agency, it was the Yankees, led by his dad, who were starting to gobble up free agents, whether it was Don Gullett or Reggie Jackson or Rich Gossage or Tommy John or Louis Tiant or whoever it was, Dave Winfield, gobble, 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 gobble. And all the way through the 90s, where they didn't always sign the biggest players, but they used their money to keep that core together. And then the last gasp of George through the 2000s, turning it into, I'm going to gobble every big free agent, every big signed player that I can, right up until 2009, as when they signed CC Sabathia and AJ Burnett and Mark Teixeira, which, by the way, all moves that were earmarked by Hal Steinbrenner. But you can't be the team. You can't lump yourself in with everyone else. That is so disingenuous. And you have to be aware how tone deaf that is. And, if you're Yankee fans, I'm sure, are not happy with the Yankees pretending that they're a cash-strapped team right now that can't keep up with the Dodgers. They can. They can keep up with them. They choose not to. And to be fair to the Yankees, the product they're going to put on the field this year will probably win the division, because even losing Juan Soto, because there is no super team in the American League. You can argue that the Dodgers are a super team in the National League. You can argue that I would argue the Phillies, the Braves, and Mets. I would argue the Diamondbacks are better than any team in the American League right now. I have no compunction saying that. There is no team that I look at in the American League that I think has a shot to win 100 games. There's a bunch of teams that will win between 84 and 90 games, and the Yankees are one of them. They'll probably be a low 90 win team. And the Yankees have signed off on that. The Yankees will probably win the American League East, and because of how wide open the American League is, The Yankees could very well go to their second straight World Series, or they could lose in the division series. But you can't play the, oh man, we're on the wrong side of the tracks. Yankees can't play that card. The Yankees would get absolutely zero sympathy from anybody on that. The franchise that invented this is trying to play, oh, what are we going to do? How can we, a franchise that can print money, who you can't buy a box of Cracker Jacks for less than $20, which has terrific attendance and owns their own television network, something we're going to get to later in this episode. You can't play the, oh, we can't keep up with them. We can't. But I tell you what can happen. We can take a good long look at the fact that if this is a rumbling that's happening for possible labor unrest, it is something that the Players Association must be sitting with their arms folded saying, okay, let's see what you got. Because if the owners go to war with the players over what's happening, they realize they also are going to go to war with themselves. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, Philadelphia, Kansas City. It's the 1980 World Series all over again. Two teams and endless possibilities. What do you mean endless? Because if you use FanDuel, you won't believe how much you can play in real time. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, how many shots of Taylor Swift they're going to have, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 of bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. Do you know a movie I rewatched this weekend with my sons? We rewatched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is a great movie. Great Clint Eastwood spaghetti western. Why am I bringing that up? Well, spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the movie, it's been out since 1966. The title refers to the three main characters who are three pretty much ruthless scoundrels during the Civil War who are in search of hidden gold. And at the end of the film, they all converge to where the gold has been buried, and they go and they shoot out for it. But it's not a duel between two, it's a duel between three. There are three people in the fight, which makes the whole conflict between the end a little more exciting, and who's going to shoot who and who's going to shoot what. And I'm thinking of that duel, the three-person duel, because if there is going to be any sort of labor unrest in baseball, it is going to resemble the end of that film, where it's three entities facing off. Now, Jeff Cohen, who's an everyday Sully, a great listener, says, I fear a work stoppage after the 2026 season. There might be, but there's a three-person showdown that you have to consider. Now, what do I mean by that? In the past, the owners have, whenever they've taken on the players in a work stoppage, they've been clobbered almost every time, because legally, the owners are almost never right. They've been found guilty of collusion. They've been trying to do unethical, labor practices, even when players get wealthy. And if it comes down to a work stoppage and if it comes down to losing money, wealthy people don't like to lose money. And the legal arguments tend to go the player's way. So the owners have always gotten their butts kicked. And even recently, when the owners have had a couple of nominal wins, like the qualifying offer and the luxury tax, which are there to curb spending, in the end, it winds up biting the owners in the butt. The players know that they're not just going up against the owners. The owners are going against each other. The players are basically facing off in the good, the bad, and the ugly duel with one set of owners and another set of owners. They can't get their stuff together. So if I'm a player, I'm like, if I'm the Players Association, I'm sitting back and waiting for them to shoot each other and to blow up their own spot. Because right now, we're seeing a main reason why the players always win in a strike or in a lockout or some and whatever work stoppage, because they're unified. They have a common goal to make money and have the ability to make their own decisions through free agency and have a quality work environment. The owners can't agree. They don't have a strong commissioner. We have a nominal commissioner in Manfred. And we have two factions. We have the owners who want to make money and pocket it. And then we have the owners who want to take that money and put it on the field. And we're seeing that those two groups of owners are the bad and the ugly in this matchup here. They're in conflict. And if you're the players, you say, you fix your own house first. You figure out what you're doing. The owners won by getting a luxury tax on. They can't get a salary cap. Take that off the plate. It's not going to happen. Even if you're an owner saying, we want to have a salary cap, great. I want it to rain strawberry ice cream. It's never going to happen. And you don't have a cap on what you can earn. You don't have a cap on your revenue. So why should the players have a cap on theirs? And you're better off having a floor, which forces you to, ante up and spend some of that revenue coming in. Baseball had record revenues this year, revenues they've never seen before. So when wealthy people are seeing record revenues coming in, they're probably not going to put a work stoppage on. But when they won those tiny victories, the luxury tax, for example, they put that in as a contingency to curb some of the team from spending way too much money. And then, we're going to tax this. If you get over this threshold, it'll be that. They didn't take into account owners saying, we don't care. They did not take into account that it would be a deterrent for some and not for a crazy billionaire like Cohen or a hedge fund like the ones that owns the Dodgers who don't care. They take the deferred Ohtani money and they invest in. They're going to wind up paying the luxury tax, and they don't care. Steve Cohen doesn't care. They didn't put that in there. And George Steinbrenner would not have cared. Now, I pointed this out before. The glorification of George Steinbrenner's legacy in baseball is hilarious if you're my age and you remember the George Must Go chant, or the scene where George Costanza chews out George Steinbrenner for ruining the Yankees. There was a point where Steinbrenner was ruining the Yankees and people wanted him out. Now he's looked around, George, he would never have settled for this and that and the other thing. That's rewriting history, his great legacy. Wasn't a great legacy. But I digress. It didn't take into account that there would be something, I don't care what the tax is. Get me everybody. If no one's going to sign him, I'll sign him. And players saying, I want to play for that organization. Kind of like how in the early 2000s, a lot of stars were like, I want to play for the Red Sox or Yankees because that's the two teams that everyone's paying attention to. And I want to be in the limelight. So even when they win, they lose. They have to come up with a new system to basically police themselves, which if I'm a player going like, you guys can't figure anything out yourself. So you don't have a unified front. This will be the easiest thing to break in the world. The 3-person showdown, the owners are going to shoot themselves. And then the players will go over and collect all the money. The owners need to fix this on their own and amongst each other. If they don't want to have a labor stoppage, which would do nothing but destroy the revenue stream, and keep in mind, this is a completely different entertainment world. And if blink, you remove baseball, there's going to be a whole generation of kids and a whole generation of viewers who are fine. I'll watch Netflix. I'll watch YouTube. I'll watch anything else. They won't come back. You'll never get them back if you have a legit work stoppage. So you got to keep that in mind. The entertainment, the fight for the entertainment eyeballs and revenue. This is not 1994 anymore. This is why when there was a lockout, even for a few weeks in 2022, it was disastrously stupid. And the best thing that happened is they came to their senses and said, okay, fine, we cannot afford to lose time on the field. But they blew it in one big way. And this is going to be a big, big problem that has nothing to do with the players. Once again, this is the owner's dilemma. And they missed an opportunity to do something in the 2010s, and it may come back to bite them. One thing that football figured out, the NFL, Pete Rozelle figured this out in the 1960s. Figured out that the NFL was a television show. It was not a sports league. It was a television show. And he figured out to use the medium of television to have football grow in ways that no one thought was possible in the 1950s, when the NFL was popular, but by the mid-60s through the 70s, turned into a behemoth. And part of it was they embraced television. And they were able to get the teams to buy into the whole league. You'll notice there's not local television contracts for NFL teams. There's national television contracts. Now, the NFL is perfectly designed for TV. It's once a week. Your team plays once a week. It builds up as an event. The action goes left to right. They're built-in commercial breaks. It's perfect for television. And he got the entire league to buy into it. And they got great television revenue and everything like that. It became a great TV show. And in the era of television, the NFL was king. There is no sport that is better designed for the internet than baseball. It's daily content, new content all the time. It could be projected or it could be available in all sorts of different platforms and video, and be able to follow it just by on social media, and be able to follow the game, whether it's by ticker or by sound or by some sort of visual representation, AI representation or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Where you see the ball travel and everything like that. It's new content daily. Your team plays 162 games. There's always new content every day. And seems to be perfectly designed for the internet. Kind of like how you're watching me right now. This is where you consume. This is where eyeballs are, ears are, our attention are on our devices and by the internet. It's no longer sitting down and watching television. And baseball could have the entire league, all their leagues encapsulated on the MLB app, and the streaming as one big league. But it didn't happen. Why? Because first of all, there was so much revenue coming in from cable networks, because the only thing keeping cable networks afloat was live sports. And so they were so focused on keeping these cable TV deals alive and the revenue coming from there, they didn't see what was coming around the corner, which was cord cutting and watching things on the internet instead of cable. Blackout rules. The stupidest thing baseball has ever done was keeping blackout rules alive. There should be zero blackout rules. They should be trying to get their product in front of people instead of removing it from people. I can't watch the Dodgers half the time because we cut the cord and I live in Los Angeles. Or it's so difficult to do that, it's almost not worth it. Good call. Good call, baseball. I can't watch Shohei Ohtani live. But baseball could have done something along the way. So it could have embraced it, and they could have had their entire league on the MLB app. Your subscription's there. Everyone gets to see it. Big pieces of revenue pie that everyone's going into, and a certain more equity for the revenues coming in. Instead, baseball doesn't act like one big league. It's like a bunch of feudal states in Italy in the 16th century. Everyone's their own entity with their own local deal of this cable network or this app that they have, or this Yes network here or Nesson there or Dodger network there. And everyone's in their own world instead of having one league where you can have all this revenue coming in. And so if Major League Baseball wants to make everyone part of the same league and the same package now, the Yankees are like, raise the middle finger and said, no, we developed the Yes network. Why should we be sharing stuff with the Pirates? Why should we be sharing stuff with the Rays? Because we were successful. And because of that, you're going to see these owner fractions are going to continue to go on because they didn't get their act together and work together as a league. And you have some owners, including the cash-strapped Yankees, who are going to have all this revenue coming in because they're their own entity. And other teams, you're seeing so many networks, cable network deals collapsing. And some teams go, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because no one anticipated that maybe the reason maybe cable TV is falling apart because you don't need it. You got the internet now. And baseball lost an opportunity to get ahead of the game. What they should do right now is everything in their power to embrace the internet, get rid of all blackout rules immediately, get the product in front of people, and see brand new revenue streams are coming in, and finding out ways to create some sort of pocket or pool or everything where it becomes a league-wide revenue source, and figure that out. In other words, stop thinking about it in terms of the owners versus the players. It's actually not that anymore. It's owners versus owners. The players are going to be there. The players are going to win labor disputes. And the players are like, yeah, we're going to keep playing. It's not up to the players to police how the owners spend their money. It's not up to the players to figure out what kind of caps they can put on things when the owners it doesn't even affect them. It affects some and it affects others, which means this is a house they need to fix. If there's going to be a labor problem, it's between the Dodgers and the franchises, not, the franchises that have big revenue streams and don't spend accordingly. You think the problem is the Dodgers? The problem is a team like the Orioles and their huge revenue streams, and you don't see their payroll skyrocket. You don't see the Red Sox spending tons of money or the Cubs spending tons. The Cubs have been doing a little better, and I'll give the Red Sox some credit this offseason. They're starting to spend some money. And they also know they have some great players coming up through the farm system. But when you see teams that have huge revenue streams and then pocket almost all of it and don't invest it back into the franchise, those are the teams you should be mad at. You should be mad at the Pirates for not investing the hundreds of millions of dollars that they have coming in revenue in making their product a little better. I keep going back to Cleveland. Yes, I know owners don't, dip into their own pocket unless they're Steve Cohen. But when you take a look at Cleveland, who won World Series title, would kind of tide over those fans for at least a decade, as they've been waiting since 1948. having a generational moment like that for a Cleveland fan, and you look at their 90-win team, you look at that they're playing in a winnable division, and you look at their payroll is under $100 million, and you look at the owner, say, hey, dip in a little bit. Have a mediocre payroll. That's where the conflict is. So instead of thinking this is going to be an owner versus the player showdown, realize it's a three-person showdown. Realize that the problem isn't that the owners are united and the players united, they're going to butt heads. The problem is the owners can't figure it out themselves. So, of course, there's going to be a conflict. But until they do, you're going to see Hal Steinbrenner out with a little tin cup saying, please, please, can you spare $100 million? So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, or just leave comments right here on the YouTube channel. Talking about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the destitute Hal Steinbrenner. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.